The world is coming undone.
So for me, Rogue One didn't quite work. So let's try fixing the problems with Rogue One's story. Okay, yeah, we got some work to do. Disclaimer, this is my opinion, and I'm not as attentive with Star Wars as some people. I have seen all the movies that came out before Rogue One, but most of them have likely faded in my memory as it was a long time ago. I would also like to say that Rogue One wasn't a terrible movie, and it's probably not as terrible as I may make it sound, but there are some character and story decisions the creators could have made that would have made it not be as bad. So let's try fixing the problems with Rogue One's story, and yes, spoiler warning for Rogue One before we continue. First of all, one of the biggest problems I have with Rogue One is that it has such a heavy focus on the plot that it leaves its characters behind. Namely, Jyn is most of the time a passive character in the movie. Things don't happen because of her. Things happen around her and she follows. She doesn't break out of prison, she's broken out. She has no choice but to go with Cassian to Jedha or go back to jail. And then she unknowingly goes to Edu because Cassian has to go there to kill her father. It just seems like for a large chunk of this movie, Cassian drives most of the story when compared to Jyn. It is not until about 2/3 of the way through the story that Jyn finally makes an active decision to fight instead of surrender.
What chance do we have? The question is, what choice?
A little late, my friend. The issue is that we don't really know what she wants for most of the movie. They even address this when Saw asks her.
So what is it that you want, Jyn?
But her response is apathetic.
They wanted an introduction, they've got it. I'm out now.
She lacks a goal, so it feels like she's just being dragged along. And I understand her arc is meant to go from apathetic to selfless when she finally sides with the rebellion, but apathy doesn't make for a strong character. So how do we correct this? The answer lies in the relationship with her father, and they try to explore this, but it's not as fulfilling. For one thing, Jyn's relationship with her father didn't really affect me. And this is because the relationship between Jyn and her father does not change at all. There is no emotional dynamic between the two. At the beginning, we get this scene.
Remember, whatever I do it to protect you. I love you, Stardust.
So as an audience, we knew that he loved her from the very start. And every interaction that Jyn has with her father afterwards only reaffirms what we already know.
It's just so hard not to think of you. Think of where you are. My Stardust.
He says, I love her, as if there was ever a time his love for her was ever in doubt. Albeit it's been years for Jyn, but as an audience it's been 15 minutes. So their relationship is pretty much static and almost pointless, other than to move the plot forward. In the end, we get an underwhelming death that really adds nothing. We didn't learn anything new, no new conflict arose, and the relationship between Jyn and her father ends the same way it began. If we started off their relationship in another way, having her father be more secretive around Jyn, act distant as if he never cared for the family, and leave without any reason, then, at his death, reveal that he was doing everything to protect her, it adds that missing dynamic to the story. Consequently, we can now make Jyn's story a search for her father. She wants answers, or maybe even revenge. It solves the issue of her passiveness, because at least now her character has a driving goal that she can take action upon. Now, let's talk about the supporting characters. Firstly, the relationship between Cassian and Jyn is kind of confusing, isn't it? They aren't friends after having just met for the first time, so if they are going to work together, they have to learn to trust each other. But much like the relationship with Jyn and her father, they establish that emotional peak far too soon.
Trust goes both ways.
Cassian seemingly trusts her for no reason, which leaves nothing to build towards in their relationship. But then immediately, Cassian goes from trusting her to not trusting her.
Did you see it?
You don't believe me?
I'm not the one you gotta convince.
And then resolving it by trusting her again, but she hasn't really done anything to earn that trust.
But I do. I believe you. Would like to volunteer.
Which feels clunky and awkward. Oh yeah, and then there's this. So there's this debate as to whether or not this is a romantic moment. But why did there ever need to be this level of intimacy at all? In what way was there ever a romantic setup or subplot? There was no obvious hint at a relationship between the two, and if it was obvious, do you think there would be this much debate on the internet? Probably not. Cassian and Jyn don't share very many intimate moments alone together at all, which is why it feels awkward being shoved in near the end of the movie. Most of the time, they are actually in conflict. Long story short, it feels like as if the studio needed to find a way to shove a relationship in, no matter how awkward, and they thought the best time to do it was when they were all about to die. Yeah. But it isn't all bad. I genuinely thought that one of the best scenes was after the battle on Edu. You know, after Galen dies. And then Jyn and Cassian begin arguing ideologies.
I had orders. Orders that I disobeyed. But you wouldn't understand that.
Orders? When you know they're wrong?
You might as well be a stormtrooper.
What do you know?
Because now you see the characters are taking a position on something.
I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. You're not the only one who lost everything.
But it's quickly undermined when you realize that Jyn and Cassian haven't really had a stance on anything throughout the whole movie. Like, really, Jyn, now you decide to grow some balls? It's great that they added some depth to the characters, but this scene should have been much earlier in the movie. They both have conflicting perspectives on how the rebellion should be fought. Cassian was raised to follow orders. Jyn has never followed orders, but they both have to learn to fight on the same side. So the rest of the supporting characters were okay. They didn't have much backstory, which I understand is difficult to fit in a 2-hour, 13-minute movie, but there were missed opportunities for these characters. Each supporting character was unique, each possessing different skills, and they should have unique weaknesses as well. If there's no weakness, there is no growth, and you end up with a static character. Rogue One could have had moments where these character weaknesses were set up and paid off in any one of the set pieces. For example, let's take a look at Bodhi. First of all, what is this? Is this supposed to be fan service? Am I missing something here? Why did there need to be a whole minute of Bor Gullet messing with Bodhi's head, when in the end it really made no difference plot-wise to the character because it was fixed moments later? But this could have been an easy way to introduce a weakness for Bodhi. For example, because he was mistreated after leaving the Imperial fleet, he could start to doubt his decisions and he doesn't want to cooperate or trust Jyn and the rest of the rebels. Only when he learns to trust them do they succeed. Now, even if we don't know much about Bodhi, we at least get a compelling character arc for him because of this. And if it's too much to work in for the supporting characters, then cut the number of supporting characters. Okay, well, that's my critique of Rogue One. Overall, it wasn't a terrible movie, and it did show some promise of good storytelling. It was fun and relatively well-paced, awesome action and set pieces, and a new perspective on a classic story. It had genuinely great moments. Who knows what the movie could have been if it had just fixed a few things with its characters. Thanks for watching.
We'll take the next chance. And the next. You're rebels, aren't you?
Save the rebellion! Save the dream!
I hope you found this helpful for your own writing. Let me know your thoughts on Rogue One or Star Wars in general. If you enjoyed my video, help me out by giving me a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. Also, maybe consider watching some of the other videos I have uploaded. I've always loved the art of storytelling and filmmaking, so I just wanted to say thank you so much for supporting me on this journey.